I want to first say that I'm really jealous of Jonathan Trance because he teaches the opening lectures some other day of the week, which I don't get to teach, which I love kind of teaching openings, and I have a lot of like cool tricks. So I thought today I would show you a bunch of games in kind of a similar opening. And then if you don't play the opening, you can kind of use it as inspiration to maybe try something new. But I think this is a common opening if you're an E4 player or if you're a Sicilian player. So first I want to get a poll of how many E4 players are there in this room. Everyone? Well, most people? How many people don't play E4? Ken West? Oh, yeah. OK, so 2 people.
The stupid French defense of like over 1,000 against that.
Oh, OK. Maybe next week we'll cover the French and how to beat it quickly. How many people play the Sicilian against E4? Sometimes? No one else? OK. Today we're going to look at what's known as the Grand Prix Sicilian or the closed Sicilian. Basically the position starting after E4, C5, knight C3. And if the opening doesn't apply to you, then hopefully you can at least take away some like cool attacking ideas from early on. And this is an opening I kind of discovered around when I was 2000. And I studied a lot of it in ChessBase, got a book on it, began playing it like a lot online. And basically from the time I was 2000 until I was 2200, I never like slowed down. I never plateaued. I think partly because of this opening. I trapped a lot of people in this opening. There's so many traps, which hopefully we'll see a good number of today. So the first game or games I want to start with happens after black plays G6. And I actually played a tournament at the club not too long ago. It was the whatever Saturday night special. I don't know if any of you played. But it's like one big open tournament. So in the first round, the matchups are, there's a pretty big rating disparity between the matchups. First round, I was playing someone maybe about 1,000 points below me. And we got to this position. And in this position, I like to play a move which maybe isn't the most common. Ken West?
F4.
F4 is probably the most common move if you're a Grand Prix player. If you like to play closed Sicilian, that would be G3. There's actually a third move here, which I discovered like less than a year ago, and I thought it was highly venomous, especially for players who might be expecting F4 or G3. It's just another alternative for white, probably one of the more aggressive alternatives, which is D4. And what this does is try and question black's setup as quickly as possible. So what my opponent did at the Saturday night tournament is he played bishop to G7. I should note that if black takes, white can take. And the main line usually goes something like knight f6, bishop b5. And black has to be very careful. And we might actually see a game in this later. But for now, we'll look at after d4, bishop g7. Here, I take the pawn. And black is temporarily sacrificing the pawn on c5 in hopes of winning it back. And here, my opponent played queen to c7. The other move is queen a5. And I'll have to explain that these moves can transpose into each other. So first, let me show you what I did after queen c7. I played knight to d5. My opponent took the pawn. Now I played a very sneaky move here. And this move might be a little bit strange to consider at first. It might not seem like it has a purpose. But it's very, very dangerous. Move is bishop to d2. And the threat is a little bit hidden if black isn't careful. And what my opponent did, it's probably the losing move, is he played knight to f6. This might actually be losing for a few reasons. But white to move in this position, what would you guys do? Anyone? Yes, Arjun?
Bishop b4.
Bishop b4, very good. And that's what I did. And the problem for black is the queen is very limited on squares. And follow-up question, what happens after queen c6? Yes? Bishop b5, very good. It might look tempting to take the pawn in e7, but bishop b5 actually traps the queen. The queen has nowhere to go. White's pieces coordinate amazingly. And the problem for black is that if the queen takes the bishop or queen e6, there's knight c7 possibilities. And white would just win a queen. And I think there's been a few games that have ended here after bishop e5 and black just gives up, losing a queen. So I thought this is kind of a nice game to know if your opponent just unknowingly walks into this. Now let me show you a similar line that can happen. Same position. In this position, black plays queen to a5. And I should note that the players in this game, I can't really pronounce because there's way too many consonants in a row this game, but Michael against Rainier, and a similar type game where white wins very quickly due to exploiting the black queen. So let's see if anyone can actually figure out the move here. So we didn't look at queen a5 before, but what would you guys play in this position? And knowing what we just saw. Yeah, bishop d2. And basically, you just want to transpose. After queen takes e5, best move is knight d5. Knight d5 looks a little bit weird, but it's just the same position as before with the same threat of bishop e4, queen c6, bishop e5. And it's such an easy threat to miss. So before we go any further, I should point out the best move for black in this position is not very obvious. The best move is knight to a6, simply defending c7. But it's a little unusual to put the knight on a6. And if you wanted to continue here from white, I can just simply develop knight f3. There's actually a cool idea here. After black plays e6, white can play bishop to c3 with an intermediate move, and basically forcing the exchange of the bishops. And after, black is pretty much obliged to take. And after knight take, white hasn't won anything, but the weaknesses in black's position are pretty horrific. Like, it's usually a bad idea to have played g6 and e6 too early and give away your dark square bishop. And white has ideas of e5 and knight e4. So does that make sense to people? If we go back, that's really the best case scenario for black, is this knight a6 move. In the game, black played very greedy, bishop take b2, just going for material. And as we'll see, this gets punished pretty severely. White played rook to b1, bishop retreats, knight f3. I think from this point until the end of the game, every move is a threat from white. And black just has the very juicy bishop and queen, very easy to exploit in the center of the board. So bishop c7 was played. Now the problem with bishop c7 is it's a kind of long-term target, and the queen is tied down to defend the bishop. And all white needs to do is try and just remove the queen from defending the bishop. So very nice move, rook to b5, queen c6. White just keeps attacking the queen, knight d4, queen d6. Anyone want to find the final move for white? Bishop, sorry?
Bishop b4.
Bishop b4 is, yeah, probably winning. White played bishop f4 in both moves. There's probably several winning moves here. But I thought this is a really funny position. Like, white just has so many pieces developed, and the only pieces developed for black are the ones which are the targets. So I will say that it's very easy to kind of stumble into this, because black kind of just played natural moves, and white was prepared with kind of some venomous counterplay. So any questions about this? So I would keep in mind, and actually have a recommendation that, OK, this was a different move order, but if you know your opponent plays g6, against closed Sicilian and you want to surprise him, then you might want to consider playing d4. Try and catch him off guard. And I will say, if I know my opponent plays this line as black, I will usually go for d4. So let's switch gears. Let's look at maybe a different black response against knight c3. I want to show you probably the most common way that black will lose in the Grand Prix. And the game I'm about to show you, I've basically played the same game at least 4 or 5 times in online blitz and maybe once or twice in tournaments. And it's a very nice illustration of how black just plays natural moves and then just gets overwhelmed with attack. And we'll see more of a kind of classic example of Grand Prix. So e4, c5, knight c3. Black plays d6. Well, most players will play d6 here because I think most players either play knight or for dragon, and d6 is pretty common. Now, before we go any further, I should note that the most common piece placement for white in Grand Prix is pawn on f4, knight to f3, bishop c4, d3, and castle. And we'll see white plays basically all these moves consecutively. So f4, f3, bishop c4, castle, d3. And we get to this position. And here there's some kind of interesting idea, which if you play this opening, you kind of have to know about. After knight e7, black has a threat in the position. So what does black want to do after knight g7? Yeah, Arjun. Black wants to play d5. Very good. So then the next question is, how does white stop it? You want to play f5? f5 is very thematic for this position, but isn't played so soon. I think I'll show you guys, because the move to stop d5 is not that obvious. It's kind of tricky, and it's also a multi-purpose move. Move is queen e1. It's simply taking advantage of the X-ray vision, where if black does play d5, the e file opens, and the knight is pinned. And white would just win a pawn. So not only does queen e1 temporarily stop d5, but it also plans to maneuver the queen to the king side. And this is an incredibly common idea in the Grand Prix, where when your f-pawn is moved so early, you want to maneuver your queen usually from e1 to h4 or g3. OK, so black castles. And in this position, very key move from white. And when I first learned this move, I was very skeptical of it, because it looks like maybe a little over-aggressive, a bit too risky. And then the more I looked into it, the more I realized that this is actually a very dangerous move for black to deal with. And the move, as you said earlier, is f5. Pawn sacrifice. And usually my style is more conservative. I don't like sacrificing material if I don't have to. Usually I'm the one who likes to grab material and then hold on. And actually, the first time I was exposed to this f5 idea was on the black side. And I lost a very quick game as black. And after that, I actually started playing this opening as white. So here, black can take the pawn mainly 2 different ways. Black can take with e-pawn, g-pawn, or black can go for d5. So I want you guys to imagine that you're in this situation as black, and you can choose between these 3 moves. You can take g take f5, e take f5, or d5. I'm curious what you guys would play. So I'll give you maybe a minute to think, and then we'll take a poll. And I'll tell you what's good and what's bad. All right, didn't give you guys too much time, but might have to go with your intuition. So how many people would play g take f5? Anyone? No? OK. Who would play e take f5? Decent number of people, about half of you. Who would play d5? 1, 2 people. Anyone would do something else? I only gave you 3 options, so hopefully not. These are the 3 most common moves. I will say the worst move is e take f5. It's probably the most played move. It looks like the most natural. You kind of take towards your king side, so you try and defend more, but we'll see why this is bad. The best moves are either d5 or g take f5. G take f5 is very brave. I will say, I think there was a game not too long ago that Wesley So played as black in the same position, and he played g take f5. And I believe it was Pro Chess League, and I believe it was a draw. But white had good amount of initiative the whole game. Probably the move I would prefer is d5, what you're aiming to do. And this applies to kind of the principle that we discussed in the other lecture, where if your opponent is playing on a flank or on the side, it's usually best to respond in the center. In this case, kind of no difference. You gain tempo on the bishop, and the main line here would be white usually plays bishop to b3. And then black has an interesting idea. Black can play c4 here, really taking over the initiative, force white to take. And then black can play d4. And I will say that this is a very complex position, and we could spend an hour or two talking about it. It's important if you play this as white, you should know the main idea here, which is f6. And this might be a little beyond my understanding too, but as far as I know, after bishop take f6, white can play e5. It's very, very complex. Knight, the bishop are hanging, but the idea is that if the bishop moves or if the pawn is captured on e5, the knight can move to e4. And that white still goes for some attack on the king side. So it's important if you play an opening, you want to be prepared for like all responses that your opponent could do. But OK, let's go back. Let's see why e take f5 is so bad. And it honestly doesn't look too bad at first. And white's next move maybe doesn't look that impressive. It's queen h4. The problem that arises for black in this position is what to do next. And it's not that obvious how black should continue. There's no obvious targets that black can attack. And I will say that most people play knight d4 or knight e5. I think these are the two most common moves. I should note that if bishop e6, this loses tactically to take and knight g5. It's too many forks and checkmating threats. So let's look at move I have, knight e5. White to move. How do you continue your attack? It's a very nice move here for white. Yeah, bishop g5. Actually, surprisingly simple, too. But the idea is you just want to overwhelm this knight on e7. The problem for black, f6 is not possible, not legal. And white will inevitably continue with knight d5. So the game I have prepared was actually two games, which ended in the same checkmate. And might as well show it. Rook e8. Knight take e5 first, just kind of simplifying, and then knight d5. And it's very annoying for black to defend knight on e7, as we can see. If black plays a move like bishop f8, it's just mate in two, knight f6 and checkmate. What happened in both of these games after king f8, it's the only other way to defend the knight, then queen take h7. And black's position just falls apart really quickly. And notice like all of black's pieces are just on terrible squares. Queen d6, knight take e7, rook take e7. Now bishop h6, with the idea that after bishop take h6, there would be queen h8 mate. So interestingly enough, both games that reached this position had queen f6 played. Now white to move, mate in one.
Queen h8.
Yeah, queen h8 mate. It's kind of a nice mate. And the games were Kirsch, Stern, 2004, and Ebbinghaus, Mengel, 1995. I will say that there's a a lot of other games which ended in a similar manner. And if we actually go back and see this position after rook e8, there's been 27 games in the database. White's won every single one. So usually if there's so many games played and white wins every single one, it's an opening to at least take a look at. Odds are more people might walk into the same thing. Just make sure if you reach this position that you win as white. That'd be embarrassing to be the only player who ever loses this position. So any questions about this line? There were some kind of opening nuances, but if you remember this f5 sacrifice, at least in this position, then white's play flows very nicely. OK, we'll move on. I didn't want to just include all my games in this database, but this is the only game I included for me, since I played this opening many times. And this is probably one of my best wins with playing this opening. And the backstory is a little bit interesting. I don't know if any of you have played US Open before. No? It rotates cities every year. I don't think it's been in St. Louis recently.
It was supposed to be, but the hotel where they were holding it 2 years ago.
That's right, and then it got moved to Florida or
Yeah,
something.
I think,
Yeah. Anyway, I played US Open a few years ago in Phoenix. And it was one of my worst tournaments ever. I was struggling to beat players 500-600 points below me. And I was going to withdraw before the last round. But I didn't withdraw because at US Open and also some other tournaments, they have what's called mixed doubles. Does anyone know about this? Mixed doubles, where a guy and a girl can team up and compete for kind of a team prize. And I had a mixed doubles partner who was doing really, really well. And I actually got the partner by just asking random girls before the tournament started if they wanted to be my partner. I was lucky enough to pick one who ended up doing well. And we were in contention for a mixed doubles prize. And going to the last round, if I won my game, there would be a good chance that we would each get some money for the prize. So I was basically in a must-win situation going into this game, despite the fact that I was having a pretty poor tournament individually. And last round, I was playing Vanessa West, which was actually a really good pairing because she also was competing for mixed doubles prize. And she's a pretty well-known person. I think she works for US Chess, does a lot of good writing. But this game, I managed to get the better of her. And as we'll see, it was, again, knight c3 Sicilian. Now, she played another very common move here, knight to c6. And I will say that I could, if I wanted to, go for the Grand Prix and play f4 and aim for kind of a similar setup as what we saw before, where if g6, knight f3, bishop g7, it would be very similar to the previous example. But usually when people play knight c6, I like to play a lesser common move. And you'll notice this a lot, especially with my opening choices. I usually go for lesser common lines, which the opponent might not be so familiar with. I like surprise weapons. So in this case, I play bishop to b5. Do you play this, Ken West?
I have a couple times.
OK. It's a fun line.
Go to d4.
Sure. So most people as black, they know knight d4 is the main move, but they don't know too much beyond that. And that's very dangerous. If you're playing this as black, you should know knight d4, and you should know at least some ideas after that. The point of bishop b5, white just simply wants to take on c6, double the black pawns, and then go for kind of the same Grand Prix setup. So I will say that if black plays g6, I would take f4, and then basically go for a similar attack, what we saw before with queen e1, queen h4. So let's focus on knight d4. Knight d4 looks good. Improve the knight and attack the bishop. I play back. And it looks like white loses a tempo, moving the bishop to b5 and then back to c4. But one of the points is that because the knight on d4, because the white is committed, or because the knight is committed to d4, white could kind of take advantage of this later on to gain time. And we'll see that. So e6 was played, knight e2. Now, I already have ideas of maybe trading off black's only developed piece. And essentially, I want to castle as quickly as possible and then open up the center. So she plays knight f6. I castle. And I should note all of this is opening preparation so far. All of this I'd seen before. And she kind of walked right into my opening preparation. She played a move here where after she played it, I was, my eyes kind of lit up because I knew that she was about to fall into a very nice trap. And the move she played looks very natural at first, just d5. Aiming to be very aggressive in the center makes a lot of sense. The problem with this move is that there's a kind of hidden tactic, and this is actually, I think, based on computer preparation, where if white isn't familiar with it, it's very, very hard to find kind of by yourself. But I knew kind of the computer recommendation here, so I take. I'll actually give you guys a shot to try and find the move here for white. Pretty surprising move. And after I played this move, she spent at least like 15, 20 minutes. So white to move. So yeah, you kind of want to look for sacrifices here. That's somewhat of the main theme, is that because the black king is in the center, you can afford to sacrifice. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and show it because it's really not easy to come up with. And even if I show you the next few moves, it's still hard to understand. It still takes like deeper level of understanding. So the first move is knight take d5. Sacrificing a knight. Knight take d5. I take on d4, so this is pretty forced. Now I'm down a full piece for a pawn. But what happens next is somewhat surprising. I have this move, queen h5. And the problem arises for black that there's targets which are actually somewhat difficult to defend. And yes, white sacrificed, but white is pretty much guaranteed to win back the piece and then get a better position. I think the best black can do here is get some worse endgame down a pawn. So the amazing thing about this is in this position, looks like black can play bishop e6. Just defend everything, looks safe. But now, very simple move, rook e1. And there's just too much pressure. There's too many pins. The bishop is pinned, and the pawn is pinned, meaning both the bishop and the knight are hanging. So if we go back, this position, there's not too many other options black can play. I think one option is to play knight e7, which he didn't play, and then white gets enough compensation. I think the other option here is to play g5, block the queen from attacking the knight. But I'm pretty sure it's just, again, too much compensation. Probably a move like d3 or rook e1, or a combination of those should be enough to give white some advantage. So I should note that after I played queen h5, I had not lost any time on my clock because I had seen this position before. I actually saw this position for the first time about 3 to 4 years before I played this game. And this was actually my first time getting this position in the game. And she used probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour after she played bishop e6. And the issue after rook e1, it's when you're black, you're searching for resources which just aren't there. So she tried this move here, knight to f4, which I had actually never seen before. So this was my first time. I had to kind of sit down, think, and figure out what to do. I knew the computer evaluation. I knew I was at least a little bit better. But the question is, what do you do as white? You're down a piece, your queen's attacked. What's the best move? Ken West.
Queen to b5.
Queen b5. Queen d7. Knight take e6. Oh, so rook take e6, knight take e6. And bishop take. Oh, wait a minute. Rook take e6, take, take. That's possible. I don't know about this. Maybe queen e7. There are some issues with back rank mates. I'm sure I considered that during the game. There's actually a more forcing approach here for white. Bishop e5, very good. And black has no other way to really get out of check other than king e7. It's not a move black wants to play. King e7. And here it's kind of just simple fork, win the knight, f6, take. And it was nice to get just, yeah?
I was looking for two moves before. Before I was considering the possibility of but just thinking of queen c5, trying to.
Yeah, I'm sure I considered queen c5. Yeah, but queen d6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, it was nice to get like such a good position from the opening with very little effort. Do you want to analyze queen c5 or?
No.
Okay. So here, my piece back, up a pawn.
Yes.
The game isn't over though, and one thing I will say is actually still one of my biggest weaknesses is the ability to convert winning positions. I don't know if anyone else struggles with this too. Sometimes it's more psychological. Sometimes when you get in a winning position, you get more relaxed, you maybe get lazier, and that's very dangerous. And here, maybe there's more pressure on me, I don't know, but I force myself to really stay involved with the game and really figure out the best sequence of play after this point. And after king f7, I kind of hunkered down, I thought, for maybe 10 minutes, and then probably found the most decisive way to finish things off here. So anyone have any kind of guesses of what white's next move would be? Arjun? Is that hand raise or a stretch? No? I heard something, someone said something. Yeah. So rook e6, it's one of these like intuitive moves you can play quickly in the blitz game. Long game, I calculated like pretty far, and I will say when I played rook take e6, I didn't see a forced win, but I saw a lot of kind of factors in the position said that there would be more than enough compensation. And the fact that really giving black no choice. Black has to take, and the point is after queen e4, the king's kind of awkwardly placed. And if the king moves back to f7, checkmate in 2. Queen d5, bishop takes c4. So the king is forced to move to d6. It's usually pretty sad when your only developed piece is your king. And I made sure not to let the king go back. I take on b7, just cut the king off. And I'm not going to show you guys the full game because it actually went a bit longer, but I will show you until like the decisive moment. Queen c8, attempting to trade queens. Of course, when your opponent's king is developed, you don't want to trade queens. And I just move back. King c5 was played. It's kind of a surprising move. Like I was kind of taken aback by this move because it's developing the king even further. But it's kind of funny because like what else does black do here? Nothing else can really get out, and I'm threatening to take on d4. And the queen is tied down to defending the rook, so king c5 is really the only way to defend d4. So I had a bit more of a think here, and then found move bishop to d7. And what this does is sort of simplify. So after queen take, I win back material. If we count, I'm up 2 pawns. Still have an attack against the king. And then wasn't long before white wins.
You didn't like b4 check?
I wanted to play b4, but maybe later. Yeah. I just figured like win material, and then don't take any unnecessary risks. I'm sure there's lots of ways to win with the king on c5 though.
Did you end up winning the double?
So yeah, we tied for like 3rd place, and I think won like 100 or 2 each. So nice way to finish off kind of a bad tournament. And I would recommend, like, if you're ever having a bad tournament, try not to withdraw. Like, try and finish it off, because if you have a bad tournament but you win the last round, sometimes it's a bit more uplifting. Anyone heard of Hou Yifan? Hopefully everyone. The highest rated female player in the world. She also played this opening, which I didn't realize like other top players go for this line, but this was actually a blitz game. And she beat Cramling in a very nice trap, where it's another example if black isn't careful in the opening or doesn't know the preparation well enough, black can easily walk into something unknowingly. So Hou Yifan is white, playing the same line. Again, knight d4, bishop c4. And this time black does something like very intuitive. The fact that the knight is on d4 might incline black to play g6 and bishop g7. It's probably the most common approach for black here. So that's what Cramling does. Knight f3. My personal preference is knight e2. In this line, I don't think it makes a difference because white ends up taking on d4, which happens. And this is actually a line I've studied in the past, and I've had a few games in myself. White actually has a surprising move here, and it's not to move the knight. So I'll let you guys try and think of a move which isn't a knight move, which is still kind of good. Yeah, Arjun. Yeah, queen f3, very good. Intermezzo. Developing the queen, making a threat, and then later, white will choose where to place the knight. So now black has to deal with the mate in one threat. And what I found really interesting in this position is that black doesn't have too many options. And actually, the best move in this position is not really the most obvious move. The best move is knight h6. And if you're playing against someone who doesn't know this line, odds are they won't play knight h6. The most common move I've ran into is e6, which is actually a mistake. And e6 walks into kind of a very nice line, which we'll see. Now the problem with e6, and this kind of applies to any position, is you want to identify what changes in a position after your opponent makes a move. So what square does e6 weaken? E6. I heard a few squares. But the right square is d6. Nothing controlling d6. And this allows white to play aggressively with the knight. The best move here, knight b5. I will say that if knight h6 was played, the best move would be knight e2. But e6 will get punished, as we'll see. Knight b5. And now black has issues. So white is kind of seizing the initiative. Knight d6 is a threat. I think the most common move here and most natural move which was played is d6. Question? This is the game, yes. And Hou Yifan played really well this game. And she played a really nice move here, which pretty sure is still opening preparation. So I'll ask you guys, how do you continue your initiative? How do you continue generating threats? Queen g3 is one move, for sure. Attack the pawn in d6. The other move, which Hou Yifan played, I'm not sure if there's a huge difference, but probably the move she played is slightly better, is queen a3. But same idea. Going after d6 pawn, and not the easiest pawn to defend. The bishop is already kind of committed to g7. And if the bishop retreats to f8, then d4 is lost. And there is actually a line here where if black plays d5, going for the double attack, white has intermezzo, bishop b5. So if we look at this position, it's maybe not entirely clear what black is supposed to do. Now Cramling probably played the best move, and the best move is really, really awkward to play. King e7. It feels wrong to play this move. But I mean, other options just aren't really good. Another move which black can try is bishop to e5. I actually had one game, maybe a few online games actually, in this position. And I was fortunate enough to already have like computer opening preparation from the past, and the computer recommendation here is really nice. Just c3, threatening to take on d4. After black takes, white plays d4. It's just overwhelming. Like white's developed, chasing away the bishop, winning d6 pawn. Great position for white. So, so let's look at king e7. And it still took work for Hou Yifan to win, because black is defending the d6 pawn, and it's not over right away. But the lasting problem for black is that the king never really got to safety. And as you'll notice, the king just stays in the center, and eventually white is able to exploit it. So c3, take, which is probably a beneficial trade for white to open the d file against the d pawn. e5. It's kind of an unusual position, but there's a lot of nice positional factors for white. Mainly the d5 square, very weak. The fact that the knight can jump there very soon. Also, the d6 pawn is a backwards pawn on the half-open file. So bishop e6, queen b3, attacking b7, bishop d5. And this was actually very important for white to keep control over d5. And after bishop take d5, not to take back with the pawn, but to take back with the queen. In order for d5 to be a weak square, white has to keep a piece there, not a pawn. If she were to take with pawn, then it would be harder for white to break through. So the idea with taking with the queen is eventually the queen will move away, and the knight will get to d5. So queen c6. Again, the rule is if your opponent's king is less safe, don't trade queens, no matter on the material situation. So queen d3. h6, very ugly move to play. But I don't know if there's anything better. Maybe bishop g5 was annoying for black. Problem is now white gets even more time to carry through with the idea. Knight b4, queen e8, knight d5. I think black resigned. Black resigned here because there's nowhere good for the king to move. Like what? There's 4 possibilities. If king f8 or king e6, there's knight c7. If king d7, there's knight b6. If king d8, it's probably still knight b6. And the d pawn hangs. So I really like this game because it was really nice opening preparation, but also a nice way of converting the position which was achieved from the opening. So any questions about this? No? Hopefully you guys are inspired maybe to play this for white. When I first saw this game, I was like really confused. And this was actually very recent at the Pan American Championships, the Collegiate Championships in December. It was a final round. And on, I think it was the top board or the top team match, the Webster B team, which is my school, was playing the UT Dallas team. And it was for first place. And on board 4, it was Manuel Hoyos for Webster against Angel Arribas Lopez for UT Dallas. And Hoyos won in 14 moves with black. So we'll flip the board. And I didn't see the game. I saw the result first. And I just didn't understand how white could lose in 14 moves as a GM. But we'll see. So e4, c5, knight c3. Now Manuel likes to almost always fianchetto his kingside bishop, so he plays g6. And Lopez actually played the line which I had recommended before with d4. And they went into kind of the line I talked briefly about: pawn take d4, queen take d4, knight f6. And I said earlier that black has to be careful in this line, but apparently after seeing this game, white also has to be careful. Really just, especially at the higher levels, you have to really know your opening preparation. So bishop b5 was played. the idea with bishop e5 is that if knight c6, white just wants to take it. And in the meantime, white is preparing to play e5. So black can't really play slowly here. Black has to do something. Plays a6. Probably the best move for black. And here, I actually didn't like the move that Lopez played. I actually have preparation here. And the move I have prepared is e5, which leads to a really complex position where sometimes the bishop gets traded for the knight. And there's some long computer analysis. But I think it's white's best try. What Lopez played was queen a4, which is also interesting, keeping the pin on the a file so bishop can't be taken. But Manuel played a really resourceful move here. And I really like the simple idea behind this move. Very simply b6. Wants to develop the bishop with kind of multiple attacks. When the bishop comes to b7, it will defend the rook, attack the bishop, and also attack the e4 pawn. So very simple, but kind of dangerous idea. So white played e5. And Hoyos plays bishop e7 anyway, because the threats are stronger, both attacking the bishop and attacking g2. So question for you guys. What move defends the bishop and defends the g2 pawn? Yeah. Bishop f1. Learning from Ben Feingold, always play bishop f1. Bishop f1 is probably the best move here, but it's sort of an ugly move to play. Like your bishop just developed to b5, and now basically have to set the board back to closer to the starting position. But there wasn't really anything else white could do. And from this point forward, black just played pretty natural moves, and then white kind of self-destructed. So knight take d5, bishop take d5, bishop e3. Simple moves develop. Queenside castle, not recommended. This is kind of like walking into a volcano trying to find shelter. Bad things are going to happen. b5. The problem is black is very well equipped to attack on the king side, or on the queen side, sorry. Because the bishop's coming to g7. The bishop and knight already have some scope on the queen side. Queen's coming to a5. And the majority of white's pieces are undeveloped on the king side. And most accurate move, bishop take a2. Sometimes it's bad to go pawn grabbing like this, but in this case, it's exploiting kind of the safety of the white king. And the follow-up after b3 is simply queen a5, and white's position is collapsing very quickly. e6 was played. I don't know what this was, maybe a desperate attempt to threaten some queen take f7, but black just took, and white resigned here. It's maybe premature resignation, but black's up 2 pawns, has very, very good attack. Black is ready just to play bishop g7, rook c8, and there's no way white's surviving this. The computer says like -6 here in favor of black. So somewhat inspirational to see a GM go down in 14 moves as white. But that's why knowing your opening preparation can be important. Any questions? I think we'll end it there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.